Hi all. Hi Sugam.
Hello.
Hi Ujjwal. I'm just taking a minute here.
Hi everyone, Sachin this side. Hi Sum, am I audible? Hello.
Yes, Sachin. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Um,
Yes, Sachin, you are audible. So I guess we are good to start, Gautam.
Yeah.
Okay.
okay. So I'll share my screen. So
I hope
today,
recording has started.
yeah, it is started. It is started. So I
Yes,
can
yes,
see it.
yes. Okay.
So
Okay,
today
Sachin.
we'll.
So yesterday we have covered Santosh for your revision, kind of. So yesterday we covered PGP creation activity, how we
Yeah.
create the key, how we manage and do the sharing and life cycle of the keys. So we have covered
Yeah.
that topic. So from go anywhere part only
Yeah.
EL
Yeah, Sugam.
creation.
So I did go through the recording today along with
Okay.
Ujjwal.
Okay. So do you have any questions on that?
No, not at this moment.
Okay, then we are good to start. And today we'll be covering EL creation part, and
Okay.
that will be the last topic for go anywhere. So Sachin, you can share your screen and we can start
Okay.
the session.
Please let me know once it's visible.
Yes, it is visible.
Okay. So before proceeding that actual encryption link creation activity, just to uh, give you an idea about what exactly this inbound and outbound file transfer looks like. So here you can see it's GSK. So this is what I could get. So this is just for your reference. So you can ignore the GSK part. It is, you can consider it as Helion. So basically this is
Mm-hmm.
the Helion infra where we have this CKS. So CKS is cryptographic key service as we call it, and that is our team. And SFT is another team which manages the SFT activities, which is on the, we can say it is also in the Helion infra only. And the third party is any vendor. So in the inbound transfer, you can say the traffic is flowing from the vendor to the Helion network, correct? So the encryption will take place at the vendor's part, and the encrypted file will be transferred within Helion, and it will be decrypted in the CKS, our CKS, like basically the Go Anywhere MFT servers, and the decrypted file will then be pushed to the output path, whatever output path we have configured in our EL. And similarly in outbound, the file will be uploaded by the user to our CKS, that basically the Go Anywhere MFT, and the encrypted file will then be pushed to SFT path, and from SFT it will then be forwarded to the specific vendor, and the file will be decrypted at the vendor's end. So this is the basically inbound and outbound workflow, you can say.
Okay.
Moving forward, so we receive this request for this encryption link creation activity in two ways. So I'll show you the service now request. So one is a direct request that we get to our groups, our service now group, and another is via a child request from the SFT team. So as I mentioned that there is another team also involved in this file transfer process. So the users at times they will raise a request to the SFT for
Mhm.
this SFT directly. So what this, as per the service now workflow, as I understand, this child request ticket is created automatically to our service now group. So that is the other service now ticket that we get, but both these tickets are for the same purpose of EL creation. So I'll show you the
Okay.
tickets, some for your reference. For example, right? So this one is created directly to our group. Let me, yeah. So just to show you the field. So this is the way the user would be mentioning in the description. Rest all the fields are pretty much common, like what is the service number and what is the item. This is the catalog item, so cryptographic key
Mhm.
service consultancy, and all the activities, service now tickets or request items you can say are received with this catalog item only to our team. Right, so this is
Okay.
what the user has mentioned. Basically, like we are building a local T&D system in China. We require employee data to be synced with global Workday. ODS team is helping them to extract data from Workday and send it to the SFTP. And they need encryption to be in place for this, for which they need our help. So this is one of them. And let me see one of the examples where we receive it via the SFT team, like the SFT workflow, a child request. Yeah, so you can see here the catalog item is secure file transfer gateway. So this is actually raised to the SFT team, and we get this task as a child request over here. So here in this ticket, you won't see any specific description about encryption or anything. So in this case, we need to send an initial email. So I'll go back to the document. So in this case, we send an initial email to the user just to confirm if the data that is involved in this file transfer is classified as a CSI data, critical and sensitive information or not. So only if they
Okay.
confirm it's a CSI data, we would proceed further with our EL activity. Like we would be having the call with the user to understand the further details. So as you have mentioned, user may respond that the data is not CSI. Then in that case, we can close that request. There is no need to take any further action in that. And once, and this is the link by the way where which they can use for reference to identify whether the data is CSI or not. And in case they have any confusions or queries regarding the data classification, so again that is not directly in our scope to identify whether the data is classified as CSI or not. So there's a different team for that. uh, I need to see if I have that email ID. I'll see and I'll share that if I have it. So they'll have to check with them in case of any queries directly related to data classification.
Okay.
And right, so once they confirm it is CSI, we can proceed further with our process. So what we do is basically we schedule a call with the user to gather all the requirements and to understand like what exactly is the workflow and all those things. So we have mentioned the details over here to understand the background of their requirement, right? And initially what we try to understand is basically it's a one-time transfer or not, or it's a recurring
Mhm.
file transfer. Because if it's a one-time activity, then in that case setting up an EL is not recommended, like it won't be of any use. So EL is something where there is a file transfer going on, let's say on daily basis or weekly basis, monthly basis, recurring activity. So for that purpose EL would be a recommended
Mhm.
solution. So if they have a one-time file transfer, in that case, they can use 7-zip. So this application would be available in Helion's software center to be downloaded. Right? They can protect, have the file protected with a password, and they can share it in a secure way if it's a one-time transfer. And there are three solutions basically, right? So one is, as I said, 7-zip for one-time transfer. Another is if they want to do the file transfer manually, they just want the keys for encryption and decryption purpose. So for that, so yesterday we spoke about PGP key generation and sharing. So that's the first part that we do,
Mhm.
to generate the key pairs and share it. The next part, like how do they transfer it, like actually encrypt and decrypt it. So for that purpose, there is this tool called as Open PGP Studio. So even this is available in the Helion's tool. So via Open PGP Studio, they can encrypt and send the files, and again the receiving person can decrypt it. So for this, there is another document attached over here, how to use this tool. So even this can be shared to the user for their reference. Okay, so this document explains step by step how the file needs to be imported, like how the keys need to be imported, and then the file to be encrypted, sent, how it needs to be decrypted. So it gives all the detailed steps in this.
Okay.
Right, so this is basically a manual way for them to do. So some users would request that, like they are okay with doing it manually, so they would just need the key pairs. So that is where that key pair generation and sharing activity comes in picture. The second is
Sure.
like when they need the entire automation, like they want the file, like the encryption and transfer, the entire thing to be automated. They don't want to do anything manually. So that is where our EL activity comes in picture, right? So
Mhm.
these are the three options. So depending on what their requirement is and what they need, we would suggest these three things and proceed further. So now if let us say they need it to be done in an automated way, so that is when we will need to create an EL. So for that we'll move further. So here we would try to understand like what is the data flow, like whether it is the data has been transferred from a vendor to Helion or from Helion to a vendor, to understand whether it is inbound or outbound, what is the source of the data, what is the destination of the data, to understand what is the inbox input path and output path that we will need to have to configure in our EL. And as you know that we have test and prod environments in our Go Anywhere. So we can
Mhm.
create the projects initially in the test environment and then in prod, depending on the user's requirement. If they ask us that they would need a separate a project to be created in our test environment to get it tested and then move to the prod environment, we can do that. But if they need only in prod, that is also fine. We can create it in prod, and they would ideally have to test the file transfer initially. So that is also not an issue. That
Mhm.
is on the requirement, like basis what the user's requirement is. So it's not necessary that we have to create on test and then move to prod. It's on the user's requirement. And the last thing that we need to ask them is regarding SFTP. So since there is this SFTP team that is also involved in this process, so the SFTP path creation and providing permissions to that path to our ID, so that part needs to be taken care of as well. And the user has to initiate a communication with the SFTP team separately for that. So we'll have to ask this as well, because sometimes what happens is the user would already have the SFTP sorted out, SFTP path details and all that thing, and then they would come to our team. But in some cases, they go the other way, like they would reach out to us initially, and maybe they are aware of SFTP uh, team, or sometimes they are not aware of that. So we have to guide them on that accordingly, right? So
Okay.
if they have the SFTP already established, then we would request them to share the details with us. If not, then we would be asking them to get in touch with the SFTP team and create the SFTP path accordingly and share us the details of the same. Now, whether it is inbound or outbound, like based on inbound or outbound, we will have to proceed further accordingly. So if it is
Mhm.
inbound, we will ask them to provide details of the functional account that will be used, like from the SFTP team, so that we can prepare the web user account on our Go Anywhere MFT and provide the necessary access. So again, I'll move up. We are talking about inbound right now. So from inbound, we are talking about this. From SFTP, the files will be delivered to our CKS Go Anywhere. So whatever
Mhm.
functional account that is being used from SFT to deliver these files, so that particular account needs to be configured in our Go Anywhere and provide the necessary permissions. So when I say
So
account, it
this
is
is
the functional account.
yeah. You are talking like the account that we created yesterday, like that.
No, that is the correct. That is a web user account. Yes.
Oh,
And in case of outbound, the SFTP team has to provide permissions to the specific path, whatever folder they have created, to our functional account, Go Anywhere functional account, because the files would be delivered from CKS to SFT in case of outbound.
okay. Yeah.
And we would need to ask two contacts from them, who would be the point of contacts for our reference in future. For example, for any issue that happens with the project and we need to get in touch with the specific owner, whoever requested it, so we need to have those details handy. So for that purpose we request two point of contacts, primary and secondary. And once all those details are gathered, so yesterday we spoke about that encryption link sheet, right? So we maintain all the details in that sheet. And this is an example email that we send to the user once we have the initial discussion with the user and what all details are available and what all details are yet to be gathered. So all those details are mentioned in this. So let us say for this example, it is an outbound transfer from Helion to vendor. So in this, we have mentioned PGP public key for file encryption in prod environment. So this is for prod environment activity. I hope this part is clear, right? When do we need to ask the PGP public key, and when do we need to create the key pair and share it? That part is clear, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So since this is an outbound, so we have asked the user for the PGP public key. So in this case, the vendor would be creating the key pair and sharing the public key initially to this point of contact, and this person would be sharing it to us. For us, the point of contact would be this single point of contact from Helion for all the communication. The second part is the SFTP path and the necessary permissions to our CKS functional ID, which in this case is this. And third is the functional account ID that the user would be using to drop the files in our CKS environment or Go Anywhere MFT. And fourth point is the two point of contacts for future communication. And since the key pair will be generated by the vendor in this case, we have to ensure that we mention these minimum key requirements as per Helion standards, so that the key pair that they generate is uh, meets these requirements, and there is no issues or compliance related issues related to that later on. So just to ensure this, whenever they share the public key, right, we can check all the details in the Open PGP Key Studio. Let me show you.
So OpenPGP is a tool which is present in that VDI, and we can check the details of the key by pasting the key details in that. So we'll get to know about the algorithm, size, expiration date, everything will come there.
So I'll just open one of the keys that is already imported here. So you'll be able to see all these details over here, whether it's RSA, whether it's the key size is minimum is 2048. Expiry date should not be more than 5 years. Please note that point. So all these details will be checked over here. Once we find that it is meeting the requirements, we'll proceed ahead.
Like in this case, it was mentioned never
That was
expiry.
a testing. That was a testing key pair that
Okay.
was created by me. Yeah.
So usually if it is more than 5 years, is there some? we need to
Though, so this is
intimate to
basically as
the
per the
requester?
Helion's. No, this is as per the Helion's process. So, as per the Helion's process, it is mentioned that the key should not be the expiration date of the key pair should not be more than 5 years. So, just to follow the process, this is what is mentioned as the requirements.
Okay.
Right. So similarly, now this is for outbound, right? So in case of inbound, the requirements would be specified accordingly. So in case of inbound, um, we would be creating the key pair and sharing the public key to the user to be further shared to the vendor. Okay, and they would be because they would be using the public key to encrypt the files and share it to Helion. And accordingly, the SFTP path won't be required in that case. I mean, since it's an inbound, so we will have to provide the access to the functional account that is being used from the SFTP side. We don't have that communication for inbound because we haven't received any case so far related to inbound. So we only have
Okay.
this email, yeah, for your reference. Right, moving forward. So now that we have all the details, once we get all the details, again it would take some time. So as we have mentioned about timelines, it would mostly from our side it won't be a lot of delay, but there would be some delay from the users and like if they have to arrange the keys from the vendor, so that would take some
Mhm.
time. Or the SFTP team as well, they would need to create the path, provide us the access. So it would take some time. So once all these things are in place, we can proceed further with the creation of the encryption link. So first step is to add
Okay.
the PGP keys. Now again, so if it is like the user has provided us the PGP keys, we would be importing it like I showed yesterday in yesterday's call. Let me again log into the MFT. Is there any background noise from my side? Can you please confirm?
No, Sachin.
No.
Okay, thanks. Please give me a second. Please give me a second. I'll be back.
Sure.
All right. So go to encryption, key management system, and CKS test PGP keys. So as I mentioned yesterday, if the activity is related to EL, the keys would be stored in this vault, the second one.
Mhm.
If it is related to just generation, key pair generation and sharing to the users, then we store it in this vault. So right now, since we are talking about EL, we are going to open this vault. And if there's any key shared by the user, so we will be importing it from this place. And if it is an inbound, so as I mentioned, we'll be creating the key pair. So we'll click on add key pair and generate the key pair by filling all the details over here as we discussed yesterday. So the key pair will be created inside our Go Anywhere MFT itself. And the public key needs to be exported and shared to the user. So we have highlighted all the snapshots over here along with the steps. So go to encryption key management system, click on this vault, go to PGP keys, click on import keys and select the file, the one that is shared by the user, public key file, and it will be imported. And in case of creating key pair, these are the steps,
Okay.
right? And once that is created, uh, what we do is we update the details in our EL sheet at the same time. Let me also open the EL sheet. Yeah, so here you can see there are different tabs that we have maintained. So if the EL activity is for test
Mm-hmm.
environment, the details are maintained over here. If it is for prod environment, it is maintained over here. If it is for only PGP key pair generation and sharing activity, it is maintained in this tab.
Okay.
Right, so it will have all these details like key name, creation date, expiry date, the PGP key ID. The most important details in this sheet that we refer to is the PGP key ID, because in future if there is anything that we'll have to troubleshoot or anything, the details that we need is the PGP key ID and the point of contacts. Yeah, those are the two key details or important details you can say that we refer to in the sheet, and the expiration date, of course.
Okay.
So the next part is about adding resources. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
now there are ideally two ways that we add the resources. One is the SSH server. So far, whatever cases we have received, these are the only two possibilities that we have seen. So one is the SSH server and one is the network share.
Okay.
Network share. So most probably it will be either of these two cases that we have to add in the resources. So let us
And
go
what kind of
step by step.
request we will get for adding this?
Sorry, I didn't get you. Can you please repeat?
Yeah, I'm saying like what kind of requests we get. Can you show one of the ticket like, for adding resources or adding network share?
Uh, we won't get any separate requests for adding resources. So this is a part of our EL creation activity.
Okay.
So we would be gathering the details in our initial call, right? What all things are required, what all things need to be configured.
Okay, so it's
Uh,
this includes into this request itself. This is a part of that.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So we would have gathered all the details in our call with the user, correct?
Mhm.
So as per that, we'll have to configure. So this is the step. So we'll go step by step now. So initially we configure the keys. Second part is to configure the resources. So let me show you that email again. Just as an example, right? So in this, you can see we have requested that please share the output SFTP path, and we require access on CKS functional ID to that particular path to deliver the files from our end, right? So this path, whatever this SFTP path is, that needs to be configured on our end, correct? That is a resource basically. This if it is not already present in our MFT, because sometimes what happens is a particular server is already there, so that won't be required to be configured again. But if it's a completely new server or completely new path, uh, not path, I would say new server, so that needs to be configured.
Okay.
So that is why this second step, when we're talking about resource, it is that particular point. So if
It's
it's an SSH server, let me again go back to the tool to show you where exactly it is. This is the home page. See resources over here, and all the resources are listed over here. So SSH servers is highlighted over here, and we need to add from here.
any specific details that we need to add while adding servers?
Yes, so we'll come to that as we proceed further.
Okay.
So once you click on add SSH server, we'll be presented with these fields: name, host, server, user, and password. The snapshot is over here below. So name would be any friendly name for that particular resource. Ideally, we will keep it as the server name, whatever the name has been provided by during the details gathering part. So the same name we would be
Mhm.
using it because this is just a friendly name. In description, again, it is not a required field, but if you want, you can just fill it for an easier identification later on. So we are just entering the functional ID that is being used to connect to that SSH server. So we are mentioning that over here in description field. Again, it is not a mandatory field as I mentioned. In host, we will be providing the server name, server address. User would be our CKS or go anywhere functional ID that is being used. So this is the prod one, if I am not wrong, I guess. Anyway, so if it is test, it will be our test operational functional ID. If it is prod environment, it will be our prod functional ID, operational functional ID that we'll be mentioning over here. In key vault, again, we can either be selecting username, password, or this key. That's not an issue, but ideally we are entering both these details. Like we are mentioning the key details as well. That is already configured for this functional ID, and we are also putting this user ID. Password is already stored over here. Let me again show this to you in the tool. So if you're talking about SFTP, this is the SFT team's server. This is the global server, sft.copnet4.net. Right now I'm in test CF342005. Yeah, so this is our test operational ID, this one. Okay, so for connecting with SFT server, this is the resource that is already configured. So we don't need to configure it again if this is the same server that is being used. If they have any other SFT server that is being used, then that needs to be configured. But again, in most of the cases that we have seen so far, this is the same one that is being used. So there is no need to configure it again. So again, in the connection tab, this is the host key. So this host key will be provided by the user itself. So in this case, the SFT team, since this resources belongs to the SFT team, so this was provided by the SFT team. We don't need to mention anything under proxy algorithms. Leave it as it is, default settings. Nothing under contacts as well. So once we are done filling all these details, we click on save, and then we can test this connectivity. It will show us if the test is successful or not. The resource test was successful. If there is any issue, it will show us an error, whether it's related to authentication or if it's related to something else, it will uh, throw an error.
So it does give details of the error.
Yeah, it will highlight what is the error about. And also we need to ensure this one, the last detail over here, RSA key signature algorithm is kept to RSA SHA-2512.
So, like you receive mostly the request for resource type as network, share, and SSH servers, right? Mostly
Yep.
requests you get from this. Okay.
Yes. So now talking about this network shares. So similar to the SFTP or SSH server that we added, we have this option to add the network shares. If I click on add network share, it will show us these fields. So again, under name, we can give any friendly name for that resource. Client type, we have to, it will be always this option, SMB all versions. Under host, it will be server address. Share name, whatever the share name that is provided to us by the user. Under authentication tab or authenticate tab, again mention the our go anywhere functional ID. If it is test, it will be this one. If it is prod, it is the other one. Domain will be AD, and we can save the network share and test the connection. So just let me show you one of the network share that is already configured. So client type is mentioned as SMB all versions. This is the server address. This is the share name that was provided to us by the user. Under authentication, we are mentioning the go anywhere functional ID CF342005. Domain is AD. Password is already stored over here because it is in our go anywhere MFT itself. So it is automatically picking the password. We don't need to enter it. Now there is an alternative way as well that we follow for an easier approach. So what we can copy whatever is already configured. Like instead of creating add new share, right? We can go here and we can copy this. So all the details would be as it is visible over here, and you can only modify the details that are required to be changed. So for example, under authentication, there is no need to change. So the password will be automatically fetched. The user detail is already provided over here. Under basic tab, we'll have to change this name. We can provide whatever friendly name for that particular resource, change the host name, change the share name. Right. So once we have the resource created, then we'll move further with the EL creation or policy, you can say, encryption link policy creation. So for that, we go to workflows, projects, and it will show us this option to add a folder. You can give the folder name based on the project. So as I mentioned, if it is, let's say, if it's an outbound file transfer from Helion to Accenture, so I would be mentioning it as Helion to Accenture. So that is what we are following. But then again, you can have your own um, formats or something else that is easier for you to identify. So if you go to workflow projects, let me take one of the projects. Yeah, so initially what we do is under templates, we have all the default policies, like basically the templates itself that is already created, and we need to select one of these from here to proceed further. And again, in most of these cases, we have either this second option local, sorry, the third option, local trigger, policy template, local trigger, or the second last option, policy template, SMB monitor. So can click on this settings and click on copy. Initially, you'll have to create one folder over here under root folder. So for example, let us say we have first created this 3 folder, and then I want this template to be copied. So go to this destination folder. I'll be selecting as 3, and once I click on copy, it will be visible over here in the 3 folder
Okay.
like this. So once that is visible over here, we can click on that, and all the fields will be visible that needs to be filled over here. Again, there is not much we need to enter over here, just a few fields. Most of it needs to be left as it is. So one is this project name, which again we will be giving it as per the vendor name and the flow of the file transfer. So in this case, it is decrypt 3 to GSK. Then we are giving the input directory, which is where the files are being dropped. So this it is a folder that is created inside our GoAnywhere MFT. So we have provided the path to that. And this is the output directory. And let me go back to the document. Sorry. So again, here we're talking about this, how to select the template. There are 6 templates that are available based on the requirement. Click on copy, click on this. It will be available over here. The same thing as we discussed now. I'll move further. Yeah. So yeah, once we are inside this, and like once that policy is copied, template is copied, we'll be editing the details one by one. So the first thing is the PGP encrypt. So if it's an since this is the decrypt project, like it's an inbound project, the file will be received by Helion and it will be decrypted at our Go Anywhere. So it should be decrypted here. So we have to select this PGP decrypt option. We have to basically enable it from here. Right now, all these details are right now it is showing disable because it is already in enabled state. So initially it will be in both the options will be visible. So we have to select either this option or this PGP encrypt option based on whether it is inbound or outbound. Right. Once we select that, next thing is to select the key that is being used. So over here we have this under advanced tab. We have this key name that needs to be selected. So if we select the key vault, where is the key vault? Over here. So here is the key vault. So we have selected the CSCKS test PGP keys over here. And within that key vault, whichever keys are present, it will show us here in the drop down for this key name field. So whichever key we have imported for this specific project, we have to select from this particular drop down over here. Once that is done, we'll move further to selecting the input path and the output path. So here is the option to enter the input directory, which in this case, as I mentioned, is the folder that is configured inside our Go Anywhere itself. And the output directory is this particular, which is in this case is I believe a cloud connector.
So Santosh, you will get to know more once you will have the access. So hands-on will
Yeah.
help you.
Yeah.
So
That
we
is
are
what
just
even I was
explaining the
thinking.
yes. So we are just explaining the document and what is the process here. But you will get to know more once you have the access and you do the hands-on activity. At least you create 1 or 2 encryption link.
Yeah.
Only
And
after that you
yeah,
will get to
and meanwhile, before we take the complete handover, if at all you people get any incident or request to do this,
yeah, I will definitely
uh,
involve you. Means
Yeah. So that will give us much more
yes, yes, yes.
clarity.
If we get any new request, then we'll definitely involve you. If not, then you need to do hands-on, or means at least create one or two sample ELs. And it is very straightforward process for inbound and outbound.
On dev you can
Yes, on dev environment you
yeah,
can means play around and
can do
create.
hands on. Yeah.
Okay.
So you can always
Okay.
refer to these documents and like do trial and error on the dev environment, as it is not being used for any operational activity as such, and we have the dev environment for that specific purpose actually.
Okay. That's great then.
So we have to reach out to
Right.
Lucas for access, right?
Yes, Lucas will be helping you, or means you can raise request through your SailPoint team. Don't know why my voice is echoing. So the thing is, you need to reach out to Lucas and to your SailPoint team. Then there are several groups, and you need to raise the access. Then Lucas will approve it, and you will get the access, and then you can do hands-on. And Sachin has explained it very well. Means step by step, he told you everything. Means
Yeah,
When we got
there are a
when
few
we
more
got
steps
handover,
left. So
when we got handover, the RKT was completed in 2 hours for go anywhere. But we are trying to give you means maximum we can give.
Okay.
Yes, Sachin. So you can continue.
yeah, so in these snapshots, it is basically they are showing the format in which the path is defined. So if it's an SFT path, so this is the format that is being used. Okay, so this is what it is. This snapshot is for, just to highlight that. So for example, in this case, if I scroll up where the folder was created inside or go anywhere, where's that? What was in the tool that I showed, right? Sorry. Right. So for example, this folder is within our tool. I mean, in the Go Anywhere MFT itself, this folder is created. So this is the format of this path. Like whatever the path is, we'll just copy it from the browser, file browser, and we'll be pasting it over here. If it's an SFTP path, then this is how the format that needs to be followed. So again, you can always refer to the projects that are already configured, right? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
uh, that's how we also did, because initially it was a bit difficult to understand the file format. I mean, the path format that needs to be used for different things. So it would be easier once you refer to the projects that are already configured and then try to do it accordingly. So this is the format for SFTP. This is the format for SMB. Where is that? This is the SMB, resource share, blah blah blah, and resource SFTP, blah blah blah. This is for SFTP, right? So once we configure these details, input directory, output directory, testing mode, we just need to ensure that this is set to false.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Apart from that, as I mentioned initially, that let us say if we are not creating anything in test, like test environment, we are only creating the project in prod environment based on user requirement. And since initially, obviously it needs to be tested, right? So what we can do is we can keep it as true in the prod environment, ask them to test it, because what will happen in that case if we set it as true is that it won't generate any alerts or anything. Like, so once that testing is done and we verify that it is completed, like the file transfer is completed successfully, we can then later update it as false, this value as false, and then save it again. Apart from this, there is no other field as such that needs to be modified over here. And let me check in the document as well. There's one more thing over here. Yeah. So if policy has specified a specified filter other than asterisk. Let me go back over here. What is the block name? Create file list. Create file list. Okay, it's here. Right. So what it's saying is if the policy has specified any filter other than this, other than asterisk, then we can create a filter within this block called as create file list block. So this is the block name create file list. So inside that, if we click on add filter, it will allow us to create something like this wildcard filter. So we have to enter details, not details, I mean just an asterisk under pattern field. Type will be include, and we have to save that. If at all this under this condition, if at all there is anything else apart from this. So once we are done with this details like name of the project, input directory, output directory, VGP encrypt or decrypt, key name. If you are done with that, you can click on validate. It will validate if all the details are correct, and it will show as validation successful. Right, that's it. We can save it and we can then inform the. Oh, sorry, there are a few more things. Uh, we have to create monitor, or we have to create trigger based on the requirement. Now, again, so this will be confirmed in our initial call with the user. So when we are talking about monitors, so monitors approach is like the network share that we were speaking about. So the user would say like, I want these files to be picked up automatically from this particular share, and I don't want it to upload manually in the go anywhere environment, let's say. So in that case, monitors approach is what we have to use. But one thing is that what we do is we try to avoid this approach, because uh, what this does is it puts a lot of load on the server, because in monitor approach the server going in a server will keep on checking that particular network share. It will keep on accessing that share after every 8 minutes, right? And that will put a lot of load on the server. So to avoid that, we prefer the trigger approach over the monitors approach. Only in case where the user insists on this approach, in some cases we can't do anything but then go with the monitors approach. Then in triggers approach, what happens is the user uploads the file to our folder which is created inside the go anywhere. Once that file is uploaded, the trigger would get activated. The After the trigger gets activated, it will call the project automatically, and this is how the flow works basically. So I'll show it to you one by one. So first, let us see on the monitors, how do we create the monitors. I go to the tool, under workflows you will see the monitors option. Here is the option to add the monitor. So if we click on add monitor, it will show us this details to be filled. The name, we will keep it as it is, the whatever the project name we have mentioned while creating the project above, we'll keep it as it is for uh, easier identification. Folder, we will be selecting the resource or the input directory, whatever the input directory we have mentioned in the project, that will be the same path we'll be selecting here under folder. File name pattern, by default it will be as it is. We have to leave it as it is, asterisk. Next comes the schedule tab. Under schedule tab, as I mentioned, we have to set it to 8 minutes to check every 8 minutes. And we have to select all the days of the week. We don't need to skip any days. So we'll select all the days, and it has to check every 8 minutes. So that's how the schedule will be uh, entered. The details for the schedule tab will be entered. Under project tab, we will again select the project. It will allow us the browse. Once we click on these three dots, it will allow us the browse to browse the projects. We will select the specific project that was configured in the above steps. Then we will enter the functional account, our Go Anywhere functional account, and the password for the same. So again, over here as well, if we are creating a new monitor or a new trigger, we will have to enter this password manually. But if we just copy the one that is already configured, all the details would already be there. We can just change or modify the details that are required for this particular project.
Okay.
So once done, we can click on save. So this will create the monitor. For trigger, we have the option over here.
So
These are all the
process will be
triggers.
same. Process will be same. You just need to
Yeah.
click on add trigger and then monitor, and then you just need to provide the details like the trigger name. Means it should be similar to the project name, and means for familiarity and which template means the process is same. Only the working is different for trigger and monitor.
And and event we will always select as upload successful, which means that once the file is uploaded, this trigger should be activated.
Yes.
So again, under name, we would be providing the project name. Rest all details would be as it is by default. We will have to leave it as it is. No need to modify. Under conditions, we will select the attribute as event.physical folder. Expression would be starts with, and comparison value we will browse by clicking on those three dots, and we will select that particular input directory path that has been configured in the project. And then in the project tab, where is it? Yeah, under action tab, basically not under project tab. Under action tab, we'll select this action type as call project. Project, again, we can click on those three dots, browse and select the particular project. Admin user would be our Go Anywhere functional ID. Run mode would be batch. Variables, just ensure that this particular variable is set. So if we just copy the ones that is already configured, most of the things would be already there. We won't need to modify. We can only modify the details related to that specific project. Once done, you can click on save. The trigger would be saved. Now, in case of trigger project, there is an additional thing that we need to configure, that is the web user account. So as I mentioned, in case of trigger, the user has to upload the file in our Go Anywhere, correct? In case of monitor, there is no need to do that because Go Anywhere itself is monitoring that particular file path, network share path that the user has provided, and the files are fetched from there automatically. So in case of trigger, since the user has to upload the file, we have to ensure that the web user account is created for them. So this, as we discussed yesterday, how to create the web user account. Now again, here also what we have noticed is in most of the cases that we have received so far, the user accounts that is already configured over here, it would be in 90% of the cases it would be one of the same. Like you will get to know this in the initial details gathering phase when we ask them for these details. So they would
Mhm.
share the details and we can then check if it is already configured here or not. If it is not configured, we have to create a new web user account for them. Right, and once everything is done from our end, we'll be sharing the necessary details to the user. For example, we'll provide them the web user account that we have configured and inform them that they have to use this web user account itself to upload the file path to our Go Anywhere. We will be providing them the input directory and the output directory. Output directory, just to inform them that the files will be delivered to this particular path. Input directory is for them to upload the files. So we will be sharing those details to the user once these things are configured on our end. So this completes the process of EL creation.
And so Santosh and Ujjwal, so we are done with the Go Anywhere part. And tomorrow we'll take the questions if you have any questions regarding this. And I would request you guys to just have access to Go Anywhere tool so that you can do some hands-on. And if you face any issue, then we can connect on that because we are still there. So I request you guys to means utilize this time and have some hands-on experience.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
So
We will
we are
drop
done.
a email to Lucas for the
Yes.
access. Yeah.
Yep.
And
And
I'll upload this document to our SharePoint, the one that I
yes,
have used today. I'll be
so
uploading that.
we are done with the go anywhere part, and in tomorrow's session.
Sugam, so there is one more thing. It won't take much time, but regarding the common errors that we get, errors and common
So
alerts,
that will
basically.
come out tomorrow. That
So
will come out tomorrow,
yeah,
Sachin.
yeah,
Means it will be 15-minute session. Then we'll take your question queries
yeah.
regarding.
That won't take much time because most of this it is already there in the document. The document is already there, so we'll just have a look at that.
Yes. So it is regarding some errors which we get. So that error you will get means
Okay.
when you will do hands-on. Okay. So I guess we are good to close the
Okay.
session today,
And
and we'll connect on the same time
yeah,
tomorrow.
s- yeah, and
Yeah, okay.
Sachin,
Yeah,
if you could just add that team name with which we need to
SFT.
connect.
SFT.
No, no, no.
SFT.
Acceptability.
There was another team who
Oh,
will
for the
confirm.
data classification part, right? Data
Yes,
classification part.
yes.
Yeah, let me search. Let me search that. I'll share it with you
So
if
if you
I
can
find.
add that particular
Yeah,
detail in the document, that would be helpful.
sure, sure.
Okay then. Uh,
Thanks, Sugam.
thank
Thanks,
you.
Sachin.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye everyone.
Okay, thank you. Bye, everyone.